The encirclement. The vast emptiness of space between the Cygnus and Orion arms glittered with the hulls of 5,000 warships. The Xenovian coalition had assembled the largest offensive fleet in galactic history. Vessels of every shape and design hung against the backdrop of distant stars. The crystalline dreadnoughts of the Arkesh, the living organic carriers of the Nimbari, the hive cluster battleships of the Zextra, and dozens of other species' military might formed a predatory web that spanned half a light year. Admiral Kreltaz stood on the command deck of his flagship, the Inevitable Triumph, his 4 eyes narrowed as he studied the holographic display. His scaled skin reflected the blue light of tactical readouts showing the fleet's formation, weapons readiness, and approach vectors toward the Proxima Centauri system, humanity's first and most symbolic extrasolar colony. "Status report," he rumbled, voice resonating through his throat sacs. First Commander Vel Nax approached, her exoskeleton clicking softly against the polished deck. "All vessels report combat readiness at optimal levels. Admiral, the humans have detected our approach as expected. Their defensive fleet is mobilizing around Proxima Centauri. Numbers. Intelligence suggests fewer than 300 ships. Admiral, even with their technological edge, our projections indicate total victory within 14 standard cycles." Kreltaz's mouth tentacles twitched with satisfaction. The humans had been an irritation for too long. Their rapid expansion from their homeworld had disturbed the carefully maintained balance of power the coalition had cultivated over centuries. Their technological advancement rate was alarming, their diplomatic flexibility frustrating. Better to crush them now before they became a true threat. "The Council's directive is clear," Kreltaz said. "The humans must be contained. Their expansion ends today." "Yes, Admiral." Vel Nax hesitated. "However, I must note that several Council representatives expressed concern about direct confrontation. The humans have demonstrated unusual." "I am aware of their capabilities," Kreltaz interrupted. "But they are one species against many, one world against an empire. Numbers will prevail." The communications officer's voice cut through their conversation. "Admiral, we're detecting a vessel approaching from the human territories." Kreltaz turned. "Their forward fleet?" "No, sir. Just one ship." A ripple of confusion spread through the bridge crew. The tactical display shifted, showing a sleek, charcoal-gray vessel approaching at sublight speed. It was remarkably small, perhaps 1/8 the size of the Inevitable Triumph, with minimal visible weapon emplacements. Its hull bore the insignia of the Earth Alliance, a stylized planet circled by 3 stars. "They send a single ship against our armada." Second Commander Graf laughed, his neck frills expanding with derision. "Perhaps they wish to surrender personally." But Kreltaz felt a ripple of unease along his spine. "Magnify." Full analysis. The image zoomed in, revealing more details of the human vessel. It appeared ordinary, a diplomatic cruiser class according to intelligence designations, yet something about its approach troubled the Admiral. "They're transmitting, sir," the communications officer reported. "Standard diplomatic frequencies. They're requesting direct communication with Fleet Command." Kreltaz considered for a moment. "Accept the transmission." The main view screen flickered to life, revealing the human face. She was bronze-skinned with close-cropped silver hair that contrasted with a youthful face. Her eyes carried the intensity of a natural predator, and her uniform was simple, navy blue with minimal insignia. "Admiral Kreltaz," she said, her universal translator rendering her words with a slight metallic undertone. "I am Captain Eleanor Reyes of the Earth Alliance vessel Phoenix. Thank you for accepting this communication." Kreltaz's mouth tentacles rippled, a gesture of disdainful acknowledgement. "Captain Reyes, you approach an invasion fleet with a single ship. I assume you bring terms of surrender from your government." Reyes's expression remained composed. "No, Admiral. I bring an opportunity, a chance for you to withdraw your fleet and avoid catastrophic losses on both sides." Laughter erupted across the bridge. Even Kreltaz couldn't prevent a gurgling chuckle. Your translator must be malfunctioning, Captain. You face the combined might of 17 galactic civilizations, 5,000 warships against your one. What possible leverage could you have to make such demands? Reyes nodded as if expecting this response. Admiral, we've been monitoring your coalition-building efforts for some time. We've tracked your fleet movements, your weapons development, your strategic planning. We've allowed it to proceed because we needed to understand the full scope of the threat. Aloud, Kreltaz's amusement faded. You speak as though you had a choice in the matter. We did, Reyes replied simply. Just as we have a choice now. I'm authorized to demonstrate why challenging Earth would be a costly mistake. She glanced down, seemingly activating something off-screen. Please observe your tactical display, particularly Sector 47B. Kreltaz turned to the holographic battle map. Sector 47B contained a wing of Arkesh dreadnoughts, 200 ships positioned as the vanguard of the fleet's left flank. Without warning, explosions bloomed across the display, not one or two ships, but dozens simultaneously erupting into fireballs. Alarms blared as damage reports flooded in. The bridge fell silent. What's happening? Kreltaz demanded, his composure cracking. Sir, the tactical officer stammered, the Arkesh ships are experiencing catastrophic power core failures. 43 vessels destroyed already, more showing critical systems failures. Reyes's voice remained level. Those ships use the Q's 920 quantum matrix configuration, an innovative design, but with a critical vulnerability in the containment field generators when subjected to specific subspace frequency manipulations. Kreltaz stared at the human, comprehension dawning. You sabotaged our ships. Impossible. The Arkesh developed those power cores internally. Did they? Reyes raised an eyebrow. Or did they build upon theoretical models published by independent researchers who happen to receive funding through subsidiaries of Earth Alliance technological institutes? The galaxy's scientific community is remarkably interconnected these days. Another series of explosions lit up the tactical display, this time among the Nimbari carriers. Panic spread through the fleet, with commanders demanding explanations and vessels breaking formation. Admiral, First Commander Velmax whispered, the human ship isn't firing. There's no energy weapon signature, no missile launches. It's as if our ships are destroying themselves. Reyes leaned forward slightly. Admiral, this is merely a demonstration. Every vessel in your fleet has similar vulnerabilities known to us. Some are hardware-based, others are software exploits, and others still are based on fundamental misunderstandings of physics principles that your scientists have embraced. We could continue this demonstration, but I think the point is made. Kreltaz's hands clenched into fists. You claim you could destroy our entire fleet without firing a shot. If necessary, Reyes replied, though we would prefer to avoid that level of loss of life. Despite what your propaganda suggests, humans aren't genocidal by nature. The Admiral's mind raced. Was she bluffing? But the evidence continued to accumulate on his screens as more ships reported critical malfunctions. What are your terms? He asked, mouth tentacles now hanging limp with tension. Withdrawal of all coalition forces from human-claimed space, a non-aggression pact lasting 50 standard years. Open diplomatic channels to address legitimate grievances between our civilizations. Captain Reyes's expression softened slightly. This isn't about domination, Admiral. It's about establishing mutual respect. Kreltaz's pride demanded resistance, but his duty to his forces required pragmatism. The humans had clearly been playing a longer, more sophisticated game than the Coalition had realized. How do we know you won't simply destroy us once we begin withdrawal? He demanded. Because we could have done that already, Reyes said simply. We're offering peace, Admiral. The alternative is your choice, but I suggest you look at your tactical display before deciding. Kreltaz turned again to the hologram, where the number of disabled ships continued to rise. The mighty invasion fleet, carefully assembled over years, was unraveling before his eyes without the human vessel firing a single conventional weapon. "You have 1 standard hour to begin withdrawal procedures," Captain Rice said. "The Phoenix will remain here to verify compliance. For what it's worth, Admiral, I hope this marks the beginning of understanding between our peoples, not merely the end of a conflict." The transmission cut. The bridge of the inevitable triumph remained silent as Krell-Taz contemplated the greatest military disaster in Coalition history, a defeat delivered by a single human in a single ship who had never fired a shot. Checkmate. The emergency council chamber aboard the inevitable Triumph vibrated slightly as another damaged ship detonated in the distance. Around a massive holographic table stood the commanders of the 17 Coalition species, their faces displaying various expressions of rage, fear, and confusion. "This is cowardice." General Vrax of the Zextra slammed his chitinous claw on the table. "The humans attack without honor, without even declaring their intentions. They sabotage rather than fight." High Coordinator Zol of the Nimbari nodded, her translucent body pulsing with angry red bioluminescence. "4 of my carrier ships are complete losses, thousands dead, and still this single human vessel sits there, unthreatening, as if mocking us." Admiral Krell-Taz stopped pacing. "The question isn't about their methods, it's about our response. We have." He checked the chronometer. 37 minutes to begin withdrawal or face further demonstrations of their capabilities. "We should attack," Vrax insisted. 5,000 ships. Even with sabotage, they cannot disable us all before we overwhelm their defenses. On the main display, the human vessel Phoenix remained in position. Small, unimposing, yet suddenly the most dangerous object in the sector. Tactical analysis continued to show minimal weapon systems, standard engines, nothing to suggest how it was coordinating the widespread failures throughout the Coalition fleet. "Are we certain they aren't bluffing?" asked Kur Thon of the Arkesh, his crystalline voice chiming. "Perhaps they've exhausted their sabotage capabilities with this initial display." Krell-Taz turned to his intelligence chief. Analysis. The intelligence officer, a gray-skinned Ilra with multiple data interfaces connected directly to her nervous system, shook her head. "Impossible to determine with certainty, Admiral, but preliminary assessment of affected vessels shows multiple distinct attack vectors, different systems, different vulnerabilities, different methods. They've demonstrated perhaps 5% of potential exploit capabilities." "How?" demanded Vrax. "How did they gain such intimate knowledge of our technologies?" The intelligence chief's eyes flickered as she processed data. "They've been hiding their true technological level. For decades, we believed humans were merely quick adopters of existing galactic technologies. The evidence now suggests they've been playing down their capabilities while studying ours." The chamber fell silent as the implications settled over the assembled commanders. "They let us think they were technological inferiors," Krell-Taz said slowly, "while they were actually centuries ahead." A priority communication alert chimed. The human captain was requesting to address the Coalition leadership. After a brief exchange of glances, Krell-Taz authorized the connection. Captain Rice appeared before them, still seated on the bridge of the Phoenix. "Commanders of the Xenovian Coalition, I understand you're discussing your options. With your permission, I'd like to provide additional context to aid your deliberations." Vrax bristled. "We need no lectures from." "Proceed," Krell-Taz interrupted. Rice nodded. "Thank you, Admiral. First, I want to assure you that we have no desire for wholesale destruction. The demonstrations were calculated to minimize loss of life, while proving our capabilities beyond doubt." "Calculated." High Coordinator Zol pulsed angrily. "Thousands of my people are dead, and millions more would die in a full-scale war," Rice countered. "A war you came here to start. We didn't initiate this conflict, Coordinator." Krell-Taz stepped forward. "You claim technological superiority, yet for decades humans have purchased Coalition technologies, licensed our designs, studied under our scientists. Was it all a deception?" Not deception, Admiral. Caution. Reyes's expression softened slightly. When humanity first ventured beyond our solar system, we discovered we were far from the most politically powerful species in the galaxy, but we were technologically unique. Explain, demanded Kurthon. Human technological development followed a different path than most spacefaring civilizations, Reyes explained. While many species in the Coalition evolved toward specialization and perfection of established technologies, human innovation has always been chaotic, decentralized, and highly adaptive. We're not smarter than you. We simply approach problems differently. She continued, when we realized this difference, we made a strategic decision to learn everything we could about your technologies while revealing little about our own true capabilities, not out of hostility, but out of prudence. And now you threaten us with destruction. Vrax hissed. Only after you assembled an invasion fleet, Reyes countered. We've known about your plans for years, General Vrax. The Coalition has systematically worked to isolate Earth diplomatically, restrict our trade, and limit our expansion, all while building toward this moment. She gestured around her. We waited, hoping diplomacy would prevail. It did not. The tactical display updated, showing more disabled ships throughout the Coalition fleet, systems failing seemingly at random, creating a spreading sense of vulnerability and fear. That's not a weapon demonstration, Reyes said calmly. That's a system diagnostic we're running to identify additional vulnerabilities. We didn't expect quite so many critical design flaws. A small, almost apologetic smile touched her lips. Your engineers really should talk to each other more. The implications weren't lost on the assembled leaders. The humans weren't just disabling ships. They were actively scanning and analyzing the entire fleet simultaneously, finding new weaknesses in real time. Krultaz felt the weight of responsibility settle heavily on his shoulders. What guarantee do we have that withdrawal will end hostilities? That humans won't use these capabilities against our homeworlds? A fair question, Reyes acknowledged. We're prepared to establish a mutual verification protocol. We'll provide details of exactly how we've been accessing your systems, and you can address the vulnerabilities. In exchange, the Coalition will respect human territorial claims and sovereignty. So we leave, fix our ships, and you lose your advantage, Kirathon observed. Why would you offer this? Because weapons are only useful if you're willing to use them, Reyes replied. We don't want to be the civilization known for destroying 5,000 ships and millions of lives, even in self-defense. That's not the legacy humanity wishes to build. She leaned forward. We understand the Coalition's concerns about human expansion. We're willing to discuss reasonable limitations, establish neutral zones, and create diplomatic frameworks to address future tensions. But these discussions must happen as equals, not under threat of invasion. A heavy silence fell over the chamber. Krultaz studied the faces of his fellow commanders, seeing the gradual acceptance of their new reality. The mighty Xenovian coalition, which had dominated galactic politics for centuries, had just discovered it was not at the apex of power after all. Transmitting now, Reyes said as data began flowing to the coalition ships. These are the technical specifications of exactly how we accessed your systems, along with our proposed diplomatic framework. As a show of good faith, the intelligence chief confirmed the transmission contained detailed technical information about the vulnerabilities the humans had exploited, information that would indeed allow them to patch these weaknesses. You're giving away your advantage, Krultaz observed. We're demonstrating that our goal is coexistence, not dominance, Reyes corrected. And Admiral, this isn't our only advantage. The subtle reminder wasn't lost on anyone in the chamber. The humans were revealing some of their capabilities while reminding the Coalition that there might be more they hadn't shown. After 4 hours of tense negotiations, the withdrawal protocols were agreed upon. The Coalition fleet would return to their territories in stages, while diplomatic teams from Earth would meet with the Coalition Council to establish new frameworks for interspecies relations. As the commanders filed out to oversee the withdrawal of their forces, Krultaz remained behind, studying the tactical display where the small human ship still held position against the backdrop of his retreating armada. "A question, Captain Reyes," he said after reopening the channel. "Of course, Admiral. Your ship, the Phoenix. It's not a standard design in your fleet, is it?" A small smile touched Reyes's lips. "Very observant, Admiral. The Phoenix is a prototype, our first dedicated diplomatic vessel with integrated countermeasure capabilities." "Diplomatic vessel," Krell-Taz repeated with a gurgling sound that approximated a rueful laugh. "A curious name for a warship." "Not a warship, Admiral," Reyes corrected. "The Phoenix hasn't fired a single shot. We designed it specifically for situations like this, where misunderstandings and military buildups threaten to escalate into unnecessary conflicts. An entire ship class dedicated to preventing war rather than winning it," Krell-Taz mused. "Perhaps we have more to learn from humans than just technological safeguards." "That's our hope," Reyes said. "This doesn't have to be the beginning of a new galactic conflict. It could instead be the first step toward a more stable peace, one built on mutual understanding rather than military deterrence." As the inevitable triumph prepared to depart, Krell-Taz watched the stars through the viewport. The Coalition had come expecting an easy victory over an upstart species. They were leaving with a profound revaluation of their place in the galactic order. The battle that never was had changed everything. 2 cycles later, the first formal diplomatic summit between the full Earth Alliance and the Xenovian Coalition convened on neutral territory. Captain Reyes, now appointed as humanity's special envoy, entered the Grand Chamber where representatives of 17 species awaited. At the center of the table sat Admiral Krell-Taz, recently appointed as the Coalition's chief diplomatic officer, a new position created specifically for managing relations with humanity. "Captain," he greeted her, mouth tentacles arranged in what humans now recognized as a formal gesture of respect. "Admiral," she replied with a nod. "Or should I say, Envoy Krell-Taz. Either is acceptable." His 4 eyes studied her. "I've been reviewing the technical data your people provided. Fascinating approaches to quantum field manipulation. Our scientists are humbled, as are ours by your achievements in biological computing," Reyes replied. "There's much we can learn from each other when we're not pointing weapons at one another." Around them, the representatives of both civilizations began the careful dance of diplomacy, former enemies now cautiously exploring the possibilities of cooperation. The shadow of Proxima had passed, but its lesson remained. In a vast and ancient galaxy, true power came not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to know when not to.